it's Robbie K coming back with a surprisingly earlier Thursday night movie review. Today we look at the Equalizer 2, a follow-up to Denzel Washington's 2014 smash hit about another vigilante, older actor coming in to kick a lot of younger butt. If you're fans of the first one, I can understand why. It's a great portrayal of Denzel Washington, bringing his usual acting bravado and kicking a lot of butt like we like to see. Kind of a summary of the first one is a man who realizes that his neighborhood's kind of going to heck, needs some justice, and he's the guy to do it. So, kind of like Death Wish, only a little more, I guess I can say a little more Robin Hood-ish than what Death Wish was with Bruce Willis. Anyway, in the first movie, what you had to like was it was cool to see the man kick some more butt. It was absolutely fun to watch some of the justice he brought into his world against the kind of cold, calculated, cruel denizens that dwelled there. And let's face it, it was Home Alone, only a lot darker with more repercussions with it, that final battle anyway. Now, if you're absolutely a fan of it, you know that you kind of know what you're in store for. But for those of you who don't, maybe that's what you're coming into my movie review for. And that thus brings me the Equalizer 2. Was it able to kind of captivate and really bring the justice like the trailers did? Did it deliver the same magic that the first one did? And heck, did it bring in the action-packed stunts like they had hoped for? Well, this is Robbie K bringing you a Robbie movie review, so let's go. In terms of hopes for this movie of what I came in, I was kind of hoping for a similar feel to the first movie, especially in terms of kind of the justice being brought, in terms of kind of the Robin Hood-like aspect, and more importantly, in terms of just seeing Denzel Washington bring his skills back into the mix. Absolutely was hoping for, though, a better story. Now, there are some who absolutely just love seeing him bring justice to a bunch of punks, with little to no, I guess, antagonism coming in to really make a memorable villain. I mean, it was just kind of a bunch of punks in a crime gang who just made the wrong move, aka kind of the John Wick syndrome without as much of the bite. Then comes Denzel coming in to kick some butt, does a great job, but I was hoping for more story, more elements, more expansion on his character. Outside of that, I was hoping for some really cool stunts, maybe a little more in terms of some choreography and combat skills, and less Home Alone-ish convenience. And, of course, I was hoping for the pace to pick up. Now, if you're a fan of the first one and just love kind of the setup and the sort of build up to the conclusion the way they did, I am too, with the exception of it took a little too long for my taste to kind of get to where it needed to go, especially with the short-lived action scenes. So I was hoping for an improvement there. In regards to the expectations that came with it, I was kind of feeling that it was going to be very similar to the first movie, only with a little better story and perhaps a little more gore behind it. I expected Denzel to still be the same kind of professional, cool, calm, kind of mono-emotion role that I'd seen him play in the first one. And I was probably expecting not much evolution on the story in regards to just some character development and potentially where his life's going from here. So that was kind of it. Overall, what were the expectations? Pretty much another generic blockbuster in terms of action. And as I read today, when I was looking to see if there was an after-credit scene, it was old man action was the genre. But enough about the hopes and expectations. Let's get to what I liked and disliked about the film. First of all, the likes. Let's put the acting in there. Put it right out on the table. Denzel's a great actor. No, really? Yes, I got it. That's an obvious statement. No problems there. But I always like to give credit to actors, and I think for the most part, they did a great job. Felt real. Didn't feel pressured. Maybe not as dynamic in terms of what I've seen him do, like on Remember the Titans or Man on Fire. But heck, it's just a very calm, cool, collected Denzel that many people love. He comes in with the same vim and vigor. He comes in with the same, desperado. But he's got that sarcastic smile that works beautifully with it. His, kind of, I guess you would say, supporting actor, playing the youth kind of struggling with a talent, but stuck in kind of the feel of the crime lord kingdom. Yeah, it worked. He did a nice job. Kind of again felt very realistic in terms of how he portrayed it. Again, just not as deep and more deeping. There could have been more components of it, but acting wise, I think he did what the directors wanted him to. Kind of put that very hardened youthful energy into him. Was something to prove, and it worked very well. Kind of sort of the young ward of Denzel Washington. In regards to the other antagonists and characters in here, they did their job fine. The kind of underlying tone is everybody seems a bit depressed and a bit haggard. So if you like that kind of underlying tone in each one and each of your characters, then you're going to find this as kind of a baseline. And it works because that's kind of what a lot of real life is in regards to portrayals. It's not all sunflowers and sunshine. But at the same time, some of the dynamicness that we like to see in actors didn't quite mediate from there. But I guess that brings me to my next one, is the realism of this movie. We know action films are all about trying to potentially defy logic, physics, and just about anything else you can think of, because we want those exciting, flashy, and often special effect driven things. Well, The Equalizer 2 is not the case on this one. Very similar, and I like to thank my buddy Tim for kind of pointing this out. But if you look at kind of the Marvel series and look at the more of the TV ones with the Defenders, when a guy takes a hit or somebody goes down, they don't just get right back up. They pretty much suffer with it. And that's what the Equalizer 2 does. It kind of forgoes the flashy special effects that defy all logic. And yeah, there's a little bit of circumventing in the fact that you have to kind of stretch your imagination a little bit. But still, there's some serious kind of staying on the reality grounds that I myself do appreciate, even though they're not the most exciting battles. Another kind of, since we're on the action, is that they actually expanded the components and kept it a little out of the Home Alone series and a little more towards kind of the Bourne components. So I did like kind of that change in transgression. It doesn't mean he didn't stop what's the word I'm looking for? Improvising his tricks, traps, and trades of weapons. But he also didn't go Home Alone-ish on it. So that quirk kind of left, which I was sad to see for originality points. But at the same time, awesome in terms of kind of going back to the heritage that we learned about in the first movie. In terms of the character explanation, I do give them props and a semi-like for the fact that they did expand upon his character and kind of opened him up a little more. We started kind of diving more into his roots that's remained hidden. So the Robin Hood qualities are still there, but now what led Robin Hood to being the kind of Equalizer Robin Hood is there. So yes, good expansion on that. In regards to kind of the other thing I love the dialogue and the more of just the screenwriting for it. While the story isn't maybe the strongest, which we'll get to in a little bit, the dialogue is very good in terms of maximizing Denzel's ability to deliver these emotionally packed, very professional, and very hardcore driven lines to motivate, inspire, and potentially teach the audience and the world kind of what the world needs, is that you need to kind of look out for each other and stop assuming, because in doing so you're going to lead to nothing but trouble and there's no reason to complain. That's kind of one of the messages there, and there's plenty more. So absolutely inspirational writing in terms of those. And even though some of the other characters don't quite have the same guff behind them and kind of fall into the stereotypical trademarks of slang, very short-sighted lines, and very simplistic ones to support it, bravo to whoever wrote Denzel's main components. I can say that the movie moved a little faster, so the pace gets a small in terms of that, and the fact that it is again one of those that the trailers did not lie. You're pretty much getting everything you see in that trailer, but maybe a little amped down. So all in all, those are my likes for it. Now, in terms of dislikes, the first thing that comes about with it is that it is a little drier than some of the other films that you might like to see. It pretty much, especially for the opening part of the film, is a massive, massive attempt to build suspense and build the character up. And as a result, it doesn't quite have the same bite as what we saw in the first one in regards to kind of the punch. Perhaps it's stale hat tricks. Perhaps it's just the way that they decided to try to take this one to expand a little more on his character. But it's a drier tone that doesn't quite have the same editing parameters that the first one did. Now, once the second half of the movie hits and we start kind of getting into the fire, that's a different story, and the pace then starts really improving and things get exciting. Things get a little more moist, and as a result, that's kind of where the comedic, not the comedic, but the action gold is. In regards to the realism, like I said, it doesn't allow for that movie magic dynamic in terms of seeing their actors kind of branch out and scope from the monochromatic depression one. Realism-wise, it's fine, but at the same time, it's just not a major inspirational role unless you think about the threats behind it. In regards to some of the other stuff, the action is actually decent at times. It still feels like an Equalizer, and, appreciating that article I read right after I got out of the movie, it's definitely part of the old man action genre as the article's author stated. I mean, it literally is a very toned down version where, because of age, you have to kind of use your brain instead of your body. Even though, again, it would have been nice to see a little more amped up, kind of what we saw with Olympus Has Fallen and London Has Fallen. I would have liked that turns, but at the same time, I don't think that's the Equalizer series. So while I appreciate it for what it is, being an action junkie like I am, I would have liked a little more expansion upon it. And fortunately, the end game managed to save it, because up to that point, it was a little for me. I think the biggest thing that I really have, and there's a bunch of stereotypes in there that come out, but I can't really be offended nor dislike them too much, outside of the fact that after comparing Denzel's character's dialogue, his writing, and his development, it would have been nice to see the other characters get a little more in regards to their evolution of writing. But again, I understand that that's the character dynamic, and I can't really be upset with that, outside of maybe one character they could have done better. No, my biggest dislike actually has to be kind of the story. While it is an improvement over just a random bunch of thugs causing problems, this time they tried to dive a little bit more into the multi-layered film without giving away too much. And, fair game, because it is in the trailer, but cover your ears real quick. In the trailer, that they take out one of his close friends. And that's supposed to set this vendetta. And the vendetta is kind of there, but again, unlike Death Wish, which was pretty much direct, we're going to take things down and do it right, and not ask any questions. This one is a little more, again, into the having to do your homework in order to get the job done. It works. It tries to cover up its bases, but at the same time, it's not that engaging at times. It's very convoluted. There's a little more, I guess, jumps and span of the series, but that's about it. It kind of is like one of those where you're doing the Spark Note version, where you'll be here and kind of do it, then all of a sudden you'll jump way ahead of the into the story without little development. And even the means and morals behind it, I can semi-appreciate it once you actually hear why they're doing it, but up until that point, you're just seeing these kind of random scenes and sequences happening, and it's so random that I think they're trying to throw you off the scent, but at the same time, it's not a good random for me, because it just kind of made the movie a little more bloated, and even more so, just not that engaging, when you could have really dug deeper down the rabbit hole and kind of uncovered something bigger. When the big reveal happened, and this is kind of another dislike, it was predictable. You saw a lot of the stuff coming, and unfortunately, the motives behind it you can kind of get on board with, but at the same time, they're just not what I was expecting, nor did I really think it was really like the most shocking experience to it. And this kind of brings to some suspension of reality that those involved in the whole scheme at all didn't quite have as much bite to it. And this kind of goes to the one man is amazing, the others not so much. But hey, you all know that there are those particular people who seem to just have like an edge above everyone. And I guess you got to go for that level. In regards, the editing could have been a little better. We could have dropped the 2-hour runtime to probably an hour and a half, hour and 45, and probably been just as fine. But, you know, if you're a big Denzel fan, you really don't care because you're going to get a lot of screen time with him. And if you find him attractive, cute, or you just love watching the man, you got plenty to do. Alright, so let's sum this up. Overall, Equalizer 2 does its job, does justice, and really works in terms of being a movie that is exactly what you expect. A crime thriller action that has a little more character development, a little more morals and political prowess to it, and a little less of the special effects. The story is better in my opinion, but still needs a lot of work in terms of trying to bring it to full scope. But at the same time, it's not awful. You just have to be ready to not have as quite of an engaging story in terms of the conspiracy and gear it more towards kind of a character development, personal reflection journey. The action fits still with the series, is a little more improvised but not as original as the first one, and the movie just needed to work on some editing and some pacing problems, and it would have been probably much better, especially in terms of it. Doesn't mean it's an awful movie, just means I was hoping for a little more bite with the second one than what it gave me, but still overall a solid film and worth the trip to the theater? Not really in terms of the regards, but of the three, this may be the one I recommend so far, but I've got 2 more reviews to do tomorrow, so I can let you know then. Until then, guys, I would give it probably, in terms of its genre, which I believe I'll call an action, drama, crime, I'll probably give it maybe a 7, 6.5 at the lowest. Movie overall would definitely be a 6. So until then, guys, Robbie K checking out. Look back tomorrow for not 1, but potentially 2 movie reviews. And again, if you hate my voice and prefer the written word, I've got that coming for you in the next hour. So until then, have fun, be safe, and of course, enjoy the movies. Bye.